themselves.
It wasn't just an issue of colonization. They had already altered their genetic structures to the point where they could no longer reproduce. Therefore, no matter where they were, they would die out.
I see. Do the Greys have a special connection to the UK? And is that why, according to a book by that, there is a Grey language that resembles Gallic?
There are connections to many different places on your planet regarding the Greys. There is no connection to the UK that is relatively different than any of the other connections.
And do you have mentors who are Essassani and were training you to become a first contact specialist? And were any humans involved in your training also?
We have discussed the idea that my own father was one of the mentors who trained me to become a first contact specialist. There are those that do specialize in those kinds of things, such as my father. Humans directly, no, were not involved, but simulations of humans were.
When you were experiencing a simulation of human contact, at the time it was happening, did you know it was a simulation?
No.
And what was your response emotionally to that kind of contact?
In the early stages, surprise, sometimes even to the level of disbelief.
What was the disbelief part?
Well, understand, as we have said, that there are not many civilizations we have encountered that have the same degree of density and forgetfulness that humans on Earth do regarding their concept of connection or disconnection to existence. And therefore, there were many things that we were presented with regarding human society that we thought, in a sense, were a trick to see whether or not we would believe what was being presented to us. When we found out that what was being presented, the degree of the limitation being presented to us in your society was not a trick, we found that to be almost unbelievable, because we had been brought up to be relatively challenged by believing that beings could actually experience that kind of disconnection from their source of power. Nevertheless, we got used to the idea that this would be a unique and exciting challenge, and therefore, as you say, I leapt at the chance.
So are there like second and third contact specialists also in your society?
Oh yes, absolutely. In fact, the idea of the being that we have referred to as Anima, which is a colleague of ours, and we have referred to her as a social engineer. So these kinds of ideas of then engaging in different aspects, different kinds of encounters, different kinds of information that gets shared, different kinds of interactions and exercises to allow a civilization to become part of the interstellar alliance are handled mostly by the so-called second and third level contact specialists.
Like when we reach the stage when we have would we have third contact specialists here on the planet? But they wouldn't be Essassani, right?
Oh, some of them might be eventually, yes.
But our frequency would have to be a lot higher for us to interact with them.
Yes, well, again, this happens in stages.
So the first contact level will go on for how long? Get any idea on that?
Well, we have already told that the window of open contact, which is mostly about the idea of first contact, is between your year of 2023 to about 2033 or 2040-ish, as you say. And therefore, thereafter, because of the acceleration that can occur during that first window of first contact, can then lead to the idea of second contact, again, starting intermittently, until such time as perhaps another decade, where things may accelerate to the point where the very, very early beginnings of third contact specialists can begin delicately and gently and intermittently laying out a foundation for what can occur next based on the choices that people on your planet are making based on the level of vibration they have achieved by that time.
So let's say in the next 6 months, as this information starts coming out about ETs
Yes.
and their presence potentially, I guess right now they're not even saying it's ETs. These may be unmanned or some sort of phenomenon, and they're even renaming it instead of calling them UFOs.
Yes.
Um,
Unidentified aerial phenomena, UAP, which is fine.
right.
And it's fine that they do not necessarily speculate that they are extraterrestrial craft, as long as they state that they are open to the possibility that will be a sufficient difference to begin to alter the mindsets of individuals on your planet to recognize that we and our existence may at least be possible.
And that's part of what shifts our consciousness slowly.
Yes.
It reminds me of when humans thought the earth was flat, in a sense.
Well, some of them did, and some of them still do, even though it is a fallacy that that was actually a predominant belief on your planet. Most of the cultures on your planet have known for quite some time that your world is round.
So, like the Native Americans, they were very connected to, I would say, Sirius energy. Is that accurate?
For a lot of them, yes. That doesn't mean they weren't connected to other things, but Sirius played a predominant part in their understanding of their connection to other kinds of consciousnesses in the cosmos, yes.
So, what other groups were part of the connections that earlier humans were experiencing?
Pleiadian was a part of it. Of course, the original Anunnaki. Sirius did play a part, as we said. In terms of actual interaction, there were a few others we cannot name. But the idea of energetic connections is much broader, such as Orion energy, Arcturus energy, so on and so forth.
So that would have been more like through channeling, let's say like the Oracle of Delphi, or those kinds of connections to higher dimensional beings,
Well,
as
yes.
opposed to actual.
Yes, although a lot of that is not necessarily extraterrestrial, but more the idea of the connections to the higher mind and the spirit realm.
So we've had a smorgasbord of other dimensional beings to connect with, and it was more dependent on an individual's theme or their particular purpose in a lifetime, whether they would encounter these beings.
Both individuals and also cultural groups, yes.
So which cultural groups were most receptive to contact with extraterrestrials?
Most indigenous cultures before the advent of what you consider to be quote-unquote civilization.
So like the Lemurians, were they open to contact and well aware of it?
Oh, absolutely. Since they were one of the first generations of human away from the Anunnaki.
Okay. What are some of the forms of entertainment that the beings in your civilization enjoy?
We have talked about the fact that I am a sculptor. There are those that enjoy the idea of singing. There are those that enjoy many other kinds of artistic expressions. Exploration is also a form of entertainment as long as education is involved as well. The idea is that it can take any form spontaneously that any particular individual in our civilization feels the need to express, although some of them are going to be relatively different than the forms of entertainment that you experience. However, there are things that are sort of similar to physical activities, such as sports, so on and so forth, but a lot of things also take place on energy levels that you don't necessarily experience yet.
Do they also have a group of beings that enjoy sort of more the shamanic type of activities with communication of plants and animals and other, well, I mean, it seems like you do that all the time.
Yes, of course. We don't necessarily consider that entertainment in the way that you ask the question. That's just our normal daily activities.
So what have
I'll
you
give you a
discovered?
particular example.
Yes.
One form of entertainment, in particular practiced by a lot of children on our planet, is the idea of what might loosely translate in your language as to popping through dimensions. So the idea is that you can sit still and you can pick a number of parallel realities to relate to. Again, it can be a random choice. It can be decided in any number of ways. Maybe even someone in the group of children will say the number 12. And so all the children will, in that moment, allow themselves to feel a rush of their consciousness popping through 12 different parallel realities in that moment, and then afterward sharing the different experiences of the different experiences that versions of them had in those different parallel realities. That is a form of entertainment as well as education.
And like children here, they love to pretend, like they can pretend that they're a certain animal, or they can pretend they're a fireman or something like that.
Yes.
How is that, those ideas expressed in your culture?
More truly experientially. In other words, they can learn to shift their consciousness to experience life literally from the perspective of an animal.
So I could even see this imagery of like a bird flying and being able to see through the eyes of the bird.
Yes.
From that vantage point.
Yes.
That's very exciting.
And to some degree similar to what you have referred to as shamanistic.
NASA is sending a manned crew to fly by the moon in summer 23. This seems synchronous with the opening of window of contact.
It is.
Can you update us on anything that may happen during that kind of experience?
There will be, as before on other flights you haven't been told about, observations of various craft.
And like in Virginia Beach, I guess the craft have been buzzing ships.
On many places on your planet, this has been increasing. In that area, as you already have heard, off the coast of what you call your San Diego area, and a few other places around your planet, sightings are now increasing if you actually pay attention to the statistics.
And the reason for that is?
The beginnings of disclosure.
So they're just making themselves more well known so that
yes.
we will stop ignoring,
yes.
in addition to the changes we're already.
Yes, and having more information to release as authentic.
Oh, I see. And what about the idea of them shutting down the nuclear codes if there's like
Again, simply a message, as we have delivered before, that you are not permitted to have thermonuclear war, because it affects far more than just your planet and your dimension. Now, as we have said, there can be isolated, small tactical nuclear incidents, as long as they do not affect interdimensional beings and consciousness, then that may not be prevented. But the idea of the shutting down, erasing, or altering the launch codes of many of your thermonuclear missiles is a direct sign that we are still watching and still giving the message that global thermonuclear war will not be allowed. What we have done before, when we suggested that you take an illustration of either a hybrid or a gray that is provided for you to download in this transmission, and cut it out, blow it up, paste it on some stiffer background, cardboard or foam core or whatever you wish that allows it to be rigid. Blow it up to the point where the head of the image of the gray or the hybrid from the top of the crown to the bottom of the chin fills one of your typical 8.5 by 11 inch pages, and therefore allow the rest of the neck and the shoulders to be whatever size they will be by following that measurement. And once, as we have described before, it has been placed on a rigid background, then place that cutout outside one of your windows, or more than one, as if it is peeking through the window at you, to get used to the idea as you're simply going about your daily business of now and then, out of the corner of your eye or more directly catching that image, especially at nighttime, peeking in at you, so that you can get used to the idea over time that there are interactions going on between those beings and yourself. And as you become more used to the idea of seeing them there, allowing yourself no longer to be startled by those particular images and starting to relate to those images pasted outside your window as if they are real three-dimensional beings looking at you physically through your window. So again, you can get used to the idea that interactions are going on, whether you are aware of them or not. This technique, as we have described it previously in that transmission, will allow you more ability to accept that these beings are in your reality and allow you more efficacy at actually being able to perceive them, the real beings, as they enter your reality and observe you and start to interact with you. This is for the purpose of making sure that you can begin to experience now, from this point forward, those interactions on a more conscious basis, on your own terms, as equals, without fear, so that you can not only remember some of the encounters you've already had that you may have forgotten one way or another, whether they were suppressed by the grays or the hybrids, or whether you suppressed them out of fear, doesn't matter. The idea now is that as you develop more of an equilibrium between yourself and your vibration and these beings, you can begin to remember the encounters you've already had and can become more aware and conscious of any future encounters as well. Now, to add to this and continue this process forward to get you again more used to the idea of open contact, because now we are starting bit by bit to proceed toward the beginning of the window at the end of 2023 of open contact, starting slowly, bit at a time. But more and more of these kinds of exercises will be shared with you, suggested for you, to give you, again, more ability to experience open contact in a way that is beneficial to all, without fear. And so what we will now add to this exercise, which you can keep doing to get, again, yourself used to this idea, and especially now that some of your military officials have begun the first stages, small stages, yes, but the first stages nonetheless of disclosure, by validating certain videos as authentic of UFOs. This is the beginning, the very, very beginnings of opening up to disclosure that we exist. So let's begin to take advantage of that momentum by adding to the previous exercise of the cutouts peeking at you through windows, by now allowing you, when you notice them at any time during the day or night, face them, walk up to them more closely on your side of the window or the glass door or wherever you have pasted them so that they appear to be peeking in at you. Walk up to them, maybe at about a distance of, let's say, 3 feet. And once you are in that position and looking at them and allowing yourself to feel comfortable looking at them, allow yourself to say the following words. I see you. I recognize you. I invite you to invite me to participate more openly, more consciously, without fear. And I introduce myself to you as a friend of the messenger, as a friend of Bashar, as a friend of the hybrids, as a friend of the children who will come to live among us. And I am open in whatever way serves everyone best to participate in the ongoing program of evolution that will allow Earth to move forward and become the sixth hybrid race. I allow this on my own terms, in an experience of comfort, in an experience of love, in an experience of allowance on both sides. And I allow myself to come into more awareness, more conscious recognition, more conscious realization of the ongoing encounters in my life and the participation of all of my counterparts and connections and my soul, family, and spirit guides and higher mind in this endeavor. For all concerned with love and peace. You may write all this down. You may read it out loud when you are facing that image. And if you wish, at the end, you can add, this is up to you. Bashar sent me, and I am here. We will leave that part up to you. Remember to do this with no insistence, no assumptions, just allowance, bit by bit. You can do this once a day if you wish, twice a day if you wish. You don't have to do it more than 3 times a day, but we will leave that up to you. And it doesn't have to last any longer than the reading we just gave you. But be earnest, be open, and if you feel any trepidation or fear, that is all right. You can stop, you can adjust, you can breathe, you can relax, you can even stop and start again later if you wish. This is all about getting comfortable with the existence of these beings in your reality and getting comfortable with your existence in our reality. So that again, you are creating and building up a frequency that is representative of the third reality between the both of our realities, respectively, that will be the reality in which open contact will occur to the best of all concerned. So practice this every day if you wish, to guide yourself more and more into the frequency of open contact. And we welcome you in this exercise and in this endeavor. So tell them Bashar sent you. We thank you now for allowing us to deliver this next phase of this exercise to you. Have fun with it, enjoy it, relax into it, be creative with it, and just be yourself and keep moving forward. And in return for this gift you have given us, in allowing us to suggest this to you, I ask you now, in what way may we be of service to you? You may begin with your questions and comments if you wish.